Senate passes for second reading a bill aimed to establish agency to manage recovered assets and properties from unlawful activities.
Police stray bullet kills 14-year-old student in Ibadan.
ECOWAS Parliament commences 2025 first ordinary session in Abuja.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall discuss outcomes of the latest CBN Monetary Policy Committee meeting.
Nigeria's naira is now a competitive currency. This was among many other announcements made at the 300th edition of the Central Bank's Monetary Policy Committee's meeting on Tuesday.
Indeed, Ademola, this means the naira presents investors in the sub-region with a safe and secure payment system. And like Olayemi Kadoso says, the risks encountered by businesses transacting along this corridor are largely reduced by their use of Nigerian currency.
That's true. From these submissions, the country's economy is now stable and ready for more investors. CBN governor says the country's net foreign reserves grew from $3 billion to the current $23 billion in the last 18 months.
And it will seem that from what he explained yesterday, the Central Bank of Nigeria's MPC retained the monetary policy rate at 27.50%. The asymmetric corridor around the MPR was also retained at plus 500 and minus 100 basis points.
Additionally, the committee agreed to keep the cash reserve ratio at 50% for deposit money banks and 16% for merchant banks. The liquidity ratio was left unchanged at 30%.
Now, this decision to hold all rates steady is aimed at consolidating the gains of previous tightening measures while carefully monitoring economic indicators for future policy direction.
Cardoso says real GDP also grew by 3.8% as against the figures in the preceding quarter.
Headline inflation reduced in April from the previous month, largely due to lower food costs, though Cardoso says the healthy state of the economy may not immediately translate to excellent standard of living for citizens.
Well, he backed these up with the explanation that investments only grow in a stable economy. So the dividends of the current state of Nigeria's economy will gradually follow shortly, advising investors to seize this opportunity.
But we also know that volatility has reduced as well as increased collaboration between fiscal and monetary policy. Now, on currency depreciation, the CBN governor says relative to other countries, Nigeria was able to ensure modest depreciation.
So today, we will take a look at the outcomes from the latest CBN Monetary Policy Committee meeting. We have a panel of guests joining us shortly. Welcome to the program. I am Ademola Adeoye.
And I am Victor Azo. I also welcome you to Good Morning Nigeria. We are live on the network service of the NTA. This is our midweek episode, and we will bring you the newspaper review in a bit. But first, let's get the news highlights from Comfort Amodu. Good morning, Comfort.
Good morning, Victor and Ademola. President Bola Tinubu has returned to Abuja after his trip to Rome, where he participated at the inaugural Mass of Pope Leo XIV. The president's plane touched down at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja, at about 6:45 this Tuesday evening. And Secretary to the Government of the Federation, George Akume, led a delegation to receive the president on arrival, and the president was one of the world leaders invited for the new pope who formally assumed the leadership of the Roman Catholic Church. Senate has passed for second reading a bill to establish an agency that will manage recovered assets and properties derived from unlawful activities. The bill proposes the amendment of the Proceeds of Crime, Recovery and Management Act to address the overlapping roles of various agencies of government.
Standardized mode of engagement on recovery and management of these assets across the 18 organizations.
There are situations where these assets are sold to the staff of those agencies, and what she is saying that we need to block those leakages.
A 14-year-old SS1 student, Paul Kende Alade, was killed Tuesday morning by a police bullet in his father's car on his way to school at Alakia in Ibadan. The family and sympathizers are demanding justice for a dream cut short unjustly. Well, the Nigerian Correctional Services launched a manhunt after heavy rainfall damaged the perimeter wall of the Medium Security Custodial Center in Ilesha, Osun State, leading to the escape of 7 inmates around 2 a.m. this Tuesday. A statement from the service indicates that the Controller General, Sylvester Wakuche, has ordered an investigation while security agencies and community leaders are working together to recapture the escapees. The public is urged to assist with any useful information via the Correctional Service Response Desk lines. The House of Representatives has called for stiffer regulations against the importation of foreign textiles into the country to give room for revival of the local textile industry. Away from that, the 2025 first ordinary session of the 6th legislature of ECOWAS Parliament has opened in Abuja, rekindling the spirit of unity among member states and well-meaning citizens in the face of daunting challenges facing the sub-region. Members of the Nigerian Institute of Public Relations, like other professionals, have been identified as critical partners who should join the efforts in disseminating the ongoing reforms of the current administration by developing and promoting a balanced narratives to stimulate growth. And the Minister of Information and National Orientation, a fellow of the Institute, reaffirmed this at the opening of the 2025 Nigerian Public Relations Week in Uyo, Akwa Ibom State. That's the news for now. Good Morning Nigeria continues shortly with Ademola and Victor after this break.
I am Oluremi Tinubu, the global and national Stop TB champion. Many people have asked why I've chosen to champion the fight against a disease like tuberculosis. My reason stems from a deep personal experience. I once had a friend who unfortunately fell ill and concealed the nature of his sickness until it was too late. Eventually, after he passed, we discovered he had tuberculosis. Sadly, due to the stigma and discrimination surrounding the disease, he would not speak up or seek for help. His death was a painful reminder that we could have intervened and saved a life if only we had known earlier. Tuberculosis is an airborne disease that primarily affects the lungs, but can also impact other parts of the body. Being airborne means anyone, regardless of their socio-economic status, can contract it. In Nigeria, 1 person dies of TB-related illness every 7 minutes, amounting to 206 deaths every day. Globally, one person succumbs to TB every 25 seconds, which is a staggering 3,456 lives lost daily. These deaths are entirely preventable because TB is curable if detected and treated early. If you or someone you know has been coughing for 2 weeks or more, coughing up blood, experiencing night sweats, or losing weight drastically, it might be TB. Please visit the nearest government hospital or primary healthcare center for proper diagnosis and treatment. TB treatment is free in all government and some private health facilities. Let us also remember not to stigmatize or discriminate against TB patients or those who have been treated for TB. Individuals who have been cured of TB cannot infect others. I call on all stakeholders, especially the private sector, to join us in the fight to end TB in Nigeria. Together, we can make a difference. Remember, TB anywhere is TB everywhere. End TB by 2030. Yes, we can.
Have you heard the news? The federal government of Nigeria, through its direct benefit transfer program, has started the disbursement of 75,000 naira per household in 3 installments of 25,000, 25,000, 25,000 naira. Each recipient must have a validated national identification number, NIN, to receive the payment on behalf of their household members. To benefit, your household must be in the National Social Register of Poor and Vulnerable Households in Nigeria. The federal government's direct benefit transfer program is helping to reduce the effect of suffering while promoting financial and economic inclusion for the poor and vulnerable population in Nigeria.
Afambo Geneka, Ebim Nagara Dimawa Village, Abuja, Nazo Afeba. So Esom Nandi register na NSR government register with my NIN. So government wears them ATM card. Njiwe wete 25,000 naira 3 times. And ega haya mketa barumulu na dem. Eji megoro makamihe. Jikweru mehendozo. Thank you.
This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and National Orientation, Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction, in collaboration with the National Social Investment Programs Agency, National Social Safety Net's Coordinating Office, and the National Cash Transfer Office.
Shield your families from germs. When Dettol is a part of every household bucket, then you and your family can stay protected from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Everyday use of Dettol keeps my loved ones protected.
Hi. You don't know when you have bacteria breath, and bacteria may be the cause of it. Don't let bacteria breath get all the attention. Use Close-Up with antibacterial zinc. Close-Up helps get rid of bacteria breath.
A new edition of TV Guide is out, featuring an impeccable personality with purposeful leadership.
Abba Abubakar Aliu, MD, CEO of Rural Electrification Agency, takes us through the gamuts of activities and mandates of Rural Electrification Agency, as well as its achievements and dreams.
I really want to see that I leave a lasting legacy that can be spoken of in a very long period of time.
Welcome to a world of fun and excitement as we also present an assemblage of professionals in the media space. Some compelling NTA programs, current trends in the fashion world, ICT, sports, entertainment, and lots more.
Meet Professor Charles Anosike, the Director General and Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian Meteorological Agency, as he shares his vision in repositioning NIMET as a key player in Nigeria's climate strategy.
Get a copy at the vendor near you or any NTA station nationwide. TV Guide, your indispensable companion.
Our major currency unit is the Naira, while the minor unit is the Kobo. They are both in notes and coins. The Naira is more than just a medium of exchange. It bears the images of our heroes. So, stop abusing the Naira. It is a criminal offense to spray the naira at events. Stop stepping on the naira. It's not your enemy. Do not squeeze, ruffle, or write on the naira. Handling the naira with dirty or oily hands can deface the naira. Love the naira as you love yourself. Be a real Nigerian. Do not abuse the naira.
Thanks for staying with us. You're still on to Good Morning Nigeria on the NTA. It's time for newspaper review.
And Chukwudokole Abuja joins us for newspaper review as usual. A pleasure to welcome you this morning.
Thank you, Victor. How are you doing?
Well, I'm all right. Perhaps I could be better.
No, it's the cold. I can feel it. I didn't take a degree in medicine. No, there are things I sense in me. But your cold is the happiness of farmers out there. It's the rains. So we're happy. Demo, how are you doing?
Awesome.
Are you also cold this morning?
No, I'm not.
He's over the weather, not under it.
If you like overturned English prepositions. How are you, Toro?
Well, let's begin the review with the Business NG. And the lead story here reads, fresh electricity tariff hike looms as Nigerians push back. Allow us breathe, APC's Ibokwe warns. All right, that story is on, continues on page 2. And just above that story, a tiny strip in red reads, NIPOST expands into banking as revenue tops 10 billion naira. Again, that's also on page 2 and above the nameplate. NAS moves to amend Pension Reform Act 2014 to boost retiree benefits. That's also on page 2. JAMB to release 379,000 UTME receipt results Wednesday. Of course, that's today. And the story is on page 2. And talking actual business now, Naira now stable as reforms boost confidence. That's credited to the CBN. Perhaps a fallout of the MPC meeting yesterday. And voting bill controversy deepens as NBA rejects fine. Interesting. At the base of the Business NG, explosion rocks Alake Sports Center at Gateway Games, and that story is on page 2. Okay, let's take you now to the Daily Times, which leads with this. NNPCL, Nuesis auditors, Senate committee tangle over legislative appearance. That one is on page 2. Above the nameplate, Obi laments insecurity in Borno, commends Zulum's courage. That story is on page 12. And gunmen kill woman, abduct husband in Edo. You get details of that on page 7. And the last 3 at the bottom of the Daily Times. Protests as police bullet kills WAEC candidate in Ibadan. Lawmaker 6 probe is on page 7. Jailbreak. NCOS hunts 7 escaped inmates from Ilesha prison. It's on page 5. And Tinubu building pan. Okay, Tinubu building pan Nigeria, reason for mass defection to APC. That's according to an unnamed group, and the story is on page 5. And finally, PDP crisis. Wike will soon burn himself out, living on borrowed time. Ex-Governor Egu. The story is on page 6. Demola.
Thank you, Victor. I have the Leadership newspaper with me here. And just above that nameplate, we have former Leadership Weekend editor Amina Al-Hassan dies at 56. Dangote makes Time 100 philanthropy list. Details of the story can be found on page 19. Then we have MPC holds benchmark interest rate at 27.5% on slower inflation. The details of that story can be found on page 7 While El-Rufai alleges widespread corruption in judiciary, WHO grapples with more than $500 million salary. Details on page 2. Criminals on Interpol list arrested at Nigerian airports. Details of that story can be found on page 7. Defections don't leave. PDP begs aggrieved members. Details of that story can be found on page 4. Mother-daughter compete for Team Lagos at National Sport Festival 2024 or 2020, well, maybe. Details of that story can be found on page 23. JAM releases results of rescheduled UTME today. Details of that story can be found on page 10. Reps move to revamp comatose textile industry. Details on page 10 as well. Gulf of Guinea immigration, others mobilize against terror threat. Details on page 16. Then we have the front page picture of the president of Cameroon, Paul Biya, exchanging pleasantries with Nigeria's Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, during the Independence Day celebration in Yaoundé, Cameroon. Chooks?
I don't want us to forget this, so let me quickly mention that we are wishing the former leadership weekend editor Amina Al-Hassan, who died at 56, sweet rest in the Lord. Yeah, it's a passage we must mention. Reps to revamp comatose textile industry. It's not today we started hearing, statements about what to do to a once vibrant industry. Let me talk about the one nearest to me. Victor, you should know about Asaba Tex. They were not just good in their heyday, heyday, not heydays. They were not just good in their heyday. They were really turning out fabric that made us proud as African people. It was not the size of Aswani, but they were doing well. And they were so prosperous that they had a thriving football team as well. They were good on the pitch. Apart from Bendel Insurance, New Nigerian Bank, Asaba Tex were the next to reckon with. But the most important thing is that we're talking returning jobs to people who need jobs. We're talking returning prosperity to a real money earner.
Creating jobs.
Yes,
employment.
Creating jobs, employment. And our fabric, even though Igbo people have started wearing our Ankara and our Kente and the rest of it, they are seeing beauty in African wear. Mm-hmm. Why are we not using the opportunity? I'm excited by the caption. Let's pray that...
I hope it goes through because
exactly.
It's been a recurring subject. It's also something we've discussed a few times here on Good Morning Nigeria. I really do hope. I don't know why it's difficult.
Government is doing something
I don't know
about
why
it.
it's difficult.
When we had our guest here, they talked about government's efforts at revamping, especially the cotton, industry and all that. So that is...
Thank you. We talked about it without talking about the base. It was not just the groundnut pyramids.
The cotton
but,
itself.
the cotton industry was something else too.
But I'm sure that one of the issues would also be electricity, as it is with industry across board. And on the front page of the Business NG, what you find is fresh electricity tariff hike looms as Nigerians push back. It keeps... The hike without seeing the power.
The hike is a recurring decimal. My mathematics stops there. But what you really ask is, what can be done without stable power? What is it? You can do the solar garden. One of the communities we passed through to our farms, they have the solar garden now. And Tanko will tell me, Oga, if you want to iron your cloth to not get NEPA, come to GGP, and then we'll all laugh. But there's a limitation to what that can do. You can really deploy panels, solar panels, the size that can power anything. But then it's going to be quite extensive. At the end of the day, I keep using that phrase, it is a question of the funds to power desire, you know? So we pray that the economy will keep on improving, because for some reason, I'm beginning to think that the federal government is getting certain things right. It's just that there's paucity of funds. You won't feel it. Food prices have come down. As I was leaving yesterday, I hope this is not advertisement, Big Bull, which went for as much as 110,000 naira December-ish, you know.
Big bowl of what?
Rice. Big
Rice
bowl. They said it was 74,000 at a supermarket in Abuja. I couldn't believe it. Look at the...
No, but you know, December comes with all the hikes.
Exactly.
So
yes.
maybe
No, but before December, the climb had got to 95. Before December. You know, I go to the market these days. I've made that statement over and over. So things are really working out gradually, but they are not working out yet to get at par with Demola's spending capacity and the ability to spend.
So he needs to earn more.
He needs to earn more, or he needs to prioritize his expenses. That's how you fight
I just
that kind
don't
of
know
thing.
why you are using Demola and not using me, so that somebody doesn't say, okay, he needs to earn more. Demola,
I'm using somebody
who
is close to my bracket.
I'm
in terms of you washed your hands, so you can now dine with the elders. We understand that, but make we talk finish. You hear me so?
But the only thing is just that,
yes,
you know, there are too many issues on government plates right now, and they are trying to solve contending issues. So I believe things will work out. I mean, just
things are beginning to work out.
Yeah,
I feel it.
Yes,
I feel it.
Just like we discussed on Monday, the inflation trend is going down.
It is.
It will take some time for the effect to be, become prominent, in the market. So let's just keep hoping.
Yeah, but benchmark interest rate at 27.5%. It still has to go down a bit more to encourage investment and savings. That's it. The fresh electricity tariffs, where's the money to...
Then this unfortunate incident that happened in Ibadan yesterday, the stray bullet that killed a 14-year-old, student that was going for his examination.
Oh dear.
That's really, really very unfortunate.
Oh dear.
But I thought that they asked the police, especially those within the cities, to always go with blank bullets. So what happened? Why are they carrying live bullets?
Debola, even in your family.
And what still? Why are they shooting it?
I don't know.
You thought they asked, they urged, they requested, they commanded. Those are statements, to define the routine of life. There will always be rebels in any unit. Think about your family. There's one person there that does not exactly behave the way you would have loved your father's children. It's always there. It's in the forces as well, But that does not in any way justify it.
I think they should enforce that.
They should enforce it.
Blank bullet issue.
They should enforce it, because you're talking lives. When you're talking lives, you don't take anything off the table but to preserve lives. That is why we feel so bad. What is happening to our compatriots in the Northwest, in Zamfara, in Sokoto, we're talking lives, preserving lives. So it's really unfortunate.
Unfortunate, right inside his father's vehicle.
Really unfortunate.
He wasn't even on the streets.
A stray bullet chooses its path. So that's why people will tell you in my village, don't say you missed blindness till you go 6 feet under. Because you could actually a stone could be thrown and you get blinded in the right eye. A day to your death. Nobody is really safe all the time, but compared to some, crisis points, you say, I am relatively safer. We are really sorry what happened to our kid sister, a lady you mentioned there, isn't it?
It's a boy.
Our kid brother. Is really unfortunate. JAM releasing result of rescheduled UTME today. I hope that begins to take my dear Onoyede away from the eye of the storm. I had to do a Facebook, I had to do a Facebook, what do you call it, write-up defending him the other time, Yeah, no, I like that man.
Thank you.
Would just allow you to see him outside the door and
is it time to kick you out?
Only to see him.
Okay, thank you so much for today.
Okay, guys.
All right, see you tomorrow. All right, we'll take a break now. The program will, the conversation will kickstart after the break. Stay with us.
From the Atlantic across the savannah to the Sahara, we rise, a land of the free, we know they tire. We dream great, our spirit is undying.
Resilient, rooted like palm tree, we sway in colors, with undying demand. We make solutions, we ignite passion, yeah. Ethnicity is unique, we are more than just a nation.
We are Nigeria, strengthened in unity. We know they carry lives. We are Nigeria, together live the dream of a land with great destiny. We are Nigeria.
I am the real Nigerian. Brought to you by the National Orientation Agency, NOA.
I am pleased to announce encouraging news from the National Bureau of Statistics, which released the Consumer Price Index, the CPI, for April 2025 only yesterday. According to the report, the headline inflation rate for April stood at 23.71%, This represents a decrease of 0.52% from the 24.23% recorded in March 2025. Similarly, month-on-month inflation dropped by a notable 2.04%, from 3.90% in March to 1.86% in April. This, of course, did not just happen by chance. The president is focused and is determined, and his determination and his interventions are clearly paying off. The benefits of reform, though gradual, are real and measurable.
NTA Television College Jos, you will dive into exhilarating hands that will fuel your passion in education and propel your career to new heights. We don't just teach, we craft the next generation of media leaders. Explore our diverse offering, understanding the personnel matters and issues in the public service, basic development communication, financial reporting under IPSAS, and interpretation of public sector accounting standard IPSAS, audit, internal check and control management, video camera maintenance, new technologies, optics, fiber, IP technologies, automation, storage management, and wireless technology. Challenges and opportunities in the secretarial profession in the digital age. Digital marketing, basic drama, online reporting, understanding the provisions of the revised public service, audio engineering operations and maintenance, camera operations, and intermediate drama. Mark your calendar. The second quarter of 2025 is your launch pad. This is your moment to seize the future. Announcer management.
Hey Nigeria, ready to breathe cleaner air and save money? Let's talk about gas. Drive with CNG, the smart, cost-effective choice. Fill up for less and travel further. Save money, save the planet. Switch to LPG for cooking. It's cleaner, healthier, and better for environment. Say goodbye to smoke and eye problems. Do you know Nigeria is a gas nation ranked 9th globally with over 209 trillion cubic feet of gas reserve? Gas isn't just for cooking and driving. It powers industries too. Cleaner, cheaper, and more efficient. And the best part, conversion centers are popping up everywhere. It's never been easier to switch to gas. Join the cleaner energy revolution. Choose LPG for cooking and CNG for your vehicles. Clean energy for brighter future. This message is brought to you by the Office of the Honorable Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Gas, supported by the Nigeria Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, NMDPRA.
I want to play!
Survey says... If my phone rings at 2 a.m., it's probably...
My mom.
An emergency.
Landlord.
Achaluko. Hey! I will give you 1.5 million. Hey! After you smile finish, I will add extra 1.5 million. Hey! Just for you to move around. I will not add extra, 2 million naira. Hey! Just for you to call me Odogu. Hey!
Family Feud Nigeria Season 3 is officially live.
The Nigeria Coat of Arms is the official seal that represents the authority of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, hung on the wall behind the seat of the principal officer of the government, supported by the portrait of the serving president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It has 7 features. The black shield stands for Good Earth of Nigeria. The silver wavy band stands for the confluence of rivers Niger and Benue. The 2 white horses stands for dignity. The yellow flora is a common wildflower throughout Nigeria. The red eagle stands for strength. The wreath is in our national colors of green, white, green. The motto, unity and faith, peace and progress, is written on a beautiful yellow ribbon, and it's a maxim for all Nigerians. Be a real Nigerian.
All right, thank you for being there. Now, this is Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. To begin our conversation on outcomes of CBN MPC meeting, here's a background report put together by Musa Abubakar.
This is the second time the Apex Bank has decided to hit the pause button, at least for now. At its latest Monetary Policy Committee meeting, the Central Bank of Nigeria retained the monetary policy rate at 27.50%, a move aimed at consolidating recent gains in the fight against inflation, which has eased to 23.71% in April, its first significant drop in months.
Members also noted with satisfaction the progressive moderation in food inflation, and therefore commended the government for implementing measures to increase food supply. The MPC thus encouraged security agencies to sustain the momentum while government provides necessary inputs to farmers.
While the committee acknowledged inflationary pressure driven by cost of electricity and persistent foreign exchange demand pressures, they called on the fiscal authorities to strengthen efforts at enhancing foreign exchange earnings through gas, oil, and exports. They reaffirmed the continued stability of the banking sector following notable improvements in key performance indicators and observed the progress made in the bank recapitalization exercise.
Given the relative stability observed in the foreign exchange market, members urged the bank to sustain the implementation of the ongoing reforms to further boost market confidence.
For business owners, this means borrowing costs remain high for now, but for investors, it's a signal of stability. The CBN is holding its ground, watching the ripple effects of past rate hikes and betting that discipline will pay off.
Thank you very much, Musa, for that report. Now joining us here to discuss the outcomes of the latest CBN MPC meeting is Dr. Victor Obo, is the Director, Monetary Policy Department, CBN. Dr. Obo, you are welcome to Good Morning Nigeria. This is your first time on this program.
Yes.
So it's your debut.
Yes.
So welcome.
Thank you very much. Good morning and good morning, Nigerians.
All right.
All right, also joining us here is Dr. Niyi Akishiju, Financial and Investment Analyst. He's also Chairman, Independent Media and Policy Initiative. Thank you very much for joining us.
It's a privilege. Thanks for having me.
And welcome back. Our sincere condolences on the passing of your mom.
Thank you so much.
All right, let's kickstart a conversation with Dr. Obo, who is the Director, Monetary Policy for the CBN. Dr. Obo, can you just give us a better clarification of the outcome of yesterday's meeting, that is this MPC decisions? What informed the outcome?
Thank you very much, and once again, good morning, Nigerians. It's no longer news that the 300 meeting of the Monetary Policy Committee of the Central Bank of Nigeria held yesterday. And incidentally, it was a remarkable meeting. You know, achieving its 300 series is quite remarkable. And the key decisions, as you are aware, was unanimous. All the 12 members of the committee were in attendance to show commitment to pursue macroeconomic stability. And all the rates were retained. The monetary policy rate, which is the anchor rate, retained at 27.5%. The asymmetric corridor retained at plus 500 and minus 100 around the MPR. The liquidity ratio retained at 30%, while the CRR, what we call the cash reserve ratio, retained at 50% for DMBs and 16% for merchant banks. Now, the decision to retain those rates were clearly data-driven and is in conformity with the objective of policy making of the central bank, that decisions have to be clearly driven by evidence. You know, numbers doesn't lie. So what the committee did first and foremost was to review developments in the global and domestic economy.
Okay.
Let me start with the domestic, from home. Charity begins at home. And what the data said was a proof of relative improvements in key macroeconomic indicators. So we had, take exchange rate for instance, we have relative stability. Clearly shown, if you pick the stability of the exchange rate, it was quite salutary. Particularly the premium between the official rate, which we call the NFM, and the BDC, had narrowed significantly, which gives businesses, leverage to be able to plan. That if you are planning for your business in the next 2-3 months, you know that there's stability in the exchange rate. So that has salutary effects on headline inflation.
Okay.
And that has also translated into, reduction in headline inflation and food inflation. So if you go through several indices, you see those improvements. Food inflation consistently moderated from January till April. So these indicators show that it is important that we stay the course, to be able to harness more, impact of the policy. So committee decided that it is good to halt any hike at this point and allow the impact of previous hikes to permeate through the economy so that we can impact the economy more and bring headline inflation down. The other aspect that, drove them to take that decision again is also to look at development at the global level.
Okay.
We are all aware of the headwinds, particularly the U.S. trade war and the retaliatory tariffs from the major trading partners of the U.S. That shows some lack of clarity in future direction of policy. And across the world, most central banks are trading softly. And that's what the governor called yesterday cautious approach, to be sure that in the short to medium term, the policy direction at the global level is clearer. So what you need to do is to be careful and watch, wait and see a little bit, so that you see where the global policy direction is going. And it's part of the reason why the bank decided to hold those rates.
Okay, Dr. Obo, I know that most of the clarification you have given this morning are more of, let's say, technicalities. But, you know, when we read this morning is that Naira is now more competitive currency.
Yes.
When you say Naira is now a more competitive currency, what do you mean by that? Because people saying, okay, do we now start celebrating that probably the Naira is gaining, you know, momentum? What do you mean by Naira is now a more competitive currency?
Okay, thank you. The context of Naira competitiveness relates to the relative stability of the exchange rate.
Okay.
And I had alluded to that in my first explanation. Competitive Naira now means that you can determine the stability of the Naira. It's not necessarily the level of depreciation at this point in time. Take, for instance, if you go to the market, a businessman goes, because the essence of all we are doing is to create a conducive environment for businesses to thrive, for investors to have interest in our economy. So if you go to the market today and the exchange rate of the Naira to the dollar is 1,500, and you are not sure that in the next 2 weeks you are still going to get that exchange rate within that horizon, then there's a problem. You can't say that your currency is competitive. So if there's high volatility in the exchange rate, you go to the market at 1,500 Naira to a dollar, and then the next 2 weeks is 2,500. Then you are heading to Zimbabwe. I mean, or Venezuela, as the case might be, where the economy will become dollarized. You now abandon your local currency and begin to use dollar in the economy. That is what we want to avoid. And so the Naira is much more competitive. Investors are ready to trade. It's now cheaper to do business in Nigeria, for foreign investors to do business in Nigeria. So that attracts investors to the Nigerian market. And that has multiple advantages. Number one, it brings in capital flows. So you have capital inflow instead of capital outflow. You get the point? Because investors are sure that they will get, real returns on their investment. So that is the context of Naira competitiveness.
What do all of these mean for the local trader at the Obogonogo market in Asaba, or the maybe bigger one in Wuse market in Abuja, or even, MSMEs? What do all of these translate to for them?
Thank you very much. Now, inflation is counterproductive for everybody. Inflation does no one any good. The household is adversely affected. Businesses are affected. Inflation harms growth or GDP. So for a local business, the fight, which the bank is trying to stay the course to bring down inflation, does good for everybody. Look at the local trader in Ogbogologo. Did you say Ogbogologo market?
Yes.
Okay. in Ogbogologo market, does not want to sell his good at high prices, and yet his purchasing power is low. Because you can sell your goods at very high prices, but you are not sure that that same money will be able to take you to the market and stock your shop anymore. Because by the time you go there, prices have gone up. That's your trader in Ogboglogo market need a stable price, low and stable price, to be able to predict what will be his or her profit in the future. What we are trying to do is to see that prices are stabilized so that the local farmer is able to buy his inputs at a price that he can predict and is able to sell and make profit. When inflation is very high, prices of things are very high, the real return on investment is negative. And so you don't make good of any profits you are using. So the totality of this effort is to ensure that all the drivers of inflation are brought under control, including FX, the foreign exchange market, and all other prices. We want to make sure that they are stabilized so that all economic agents, and by this I mean the investors, and both local and foreign, they are all aware and they are sure and they can predict what they are doing now and in the future.
Okay, Dr. Obo, before we escalate this conversation to Dr. Akinshiju, I want to ask you, because the CBN governor hinted that the fact that the economic indices may not immediately translate to enhance standard of living for citizens, because of the behavior of investors who only wait for a stable currency. Can you give a better explanation to that? Why
yes. What this means is that he is trying to emphasize the importance of stability of macroeconomic indicators. And that is to show that investors keep an eye. Before they come and invest, they watch these macroeconomic indices. For instance, they look at your exchange rate. Is it stable? Is it something that if I invest today, tomorrow I will not suffer any investment loss? That is where exchange rate stability comes in. They look at some fundamentals. For instance, I pick your external reserve position. An investor wants to know if by the time he's repatriating his investment out of the country, do you have sufficient reserve position to be able to pay? Remember, foreign investors come in with foreign currency. When they come with foreign currency, it is converted to the naira. After the end of their investment period, they want to repatriate that money out. They are not taking the naira out. That naira needs to be converted back to FX. That depends on the strength of our external reserves. It's another fundamental indicator they look at. And then they look at other issues, your GDP growth and the rest of them.
I think our reserve has jumped now.
Yes, it has increased.
Okay.
It has increased impressively. And that is part of the fundamentals we saw.
Okay.
And the gradual improvement. So that is the meaning. Yeah. So investors look at all these before they take their position. Again, so by the time those inflows come into the country, transmission mechanism comes at a lag. So it takes a little time before some of these policies are translated into gains.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Obo. Let me hope that Niyi Akinshiju will be able to give us his own assessment from the investor point of view. So what does a stable monetary policy signal at this time in Nigeria's economic trajectory?
Well, I think just like Doc said, to determine the policy rate, you have to relate with data. So I was not surprised when all parameters, were sustained and retained. Because what you see over the last 4 years is what I describe as a clustering, of the inflation rate. Inflation rate was a high of 34.80 in December. After the rebasing figures kicked in, it went to 24.48 in January, and then declined to 23.18 in February, and then of course shot up again to 24.23 in March, and I now have 23.71 in April. So what you see is a clustering, on that range of 23 to 24. No consensus institution would take any action, even considering whatever is happening globally, domestic and all that, relating to that data. The data is telling you that the economic activities are within that certain range. So there's a need for a settling of that range, and until you see a breakout from that range, no possible decision can be taken. One, like you said, that lag effect, is yet to kick in, and until you have that lag effect kicking, you may not be able to take that decision. So I also now observed that the lag effect of the policy rates, that peaked at 27.5%, and other parameters are already showing, especially when you look at the month-on-month rates. So you have March at a high of 3.90, and you now have April at 1.86 or so. That's more than 2% decline, when you compare the two months. So what that tells me is that going forward, there's likely to be a breakout, either in the figures for May or June. The only little worries, that we'll have in that consideration may be the festival, the Muslim festival. Yeah. Because during period of festivals, prices naturally, jump. But given this month-on-month comparison, my thinking is that except there is an event of excessive distortion in the economy, there's likely to be a further decline, And I think the CBN is also pursuing the targeting of inflation to 21%. And this is, I can see the journey to that 21% targeting, We can also, of course, mention the federal government targeting too, at 15%. Some of us have discussed this. It's
whether realizable or not.
Well, if it's a topic for discussion, there may be rationale for it. Okay. But in the immediate, since we are talking about the MPC, I am seeing, obviously, the possibility of accomplishing that 21% in the next 2 to 3 months, because it's as if all cost indications, all cost items had been taken care of in the April figures. That is why we are seeing that month-on-month difference. It's not every day that you see more than 200 basis points, diversion in data. So when you see that, it becomes emblematic of what is likely to happen in the coming months. So essentially, I believe that going forward, we are likely to see the CBN, in the next. I can project that in the next MPC meeting, review the 27.5%, because I also know that from what the CBN governor said, it's a cause for concern when you have a high MPC rate. 27.5% is a high, But again, it's the option. I'd also argued here that it's a trade-off. It's either you allow the management of inflation rate to come down in a way that it will not impact standard of living, entrepreneurial development, and of course economic growth. than to say, okay, let us sustain it, and at the same time you want to encourage development. The two cannot stay in the same. It's two captains in the same vessel. So it's either you manage inflation and it reduces, or after you do that, then of course you now start driving development.
And then the naira was projected as a competitive currency. What do you make of that, especially as it concerns both regional and foreign investors?
Okay, before you answer that, we just want to let our viewers know that they can also contribute to this discussion by calling us, by sending SMS or WhatsApp messages to this number. Our phone line is 08169688126. 08169688126. So you can contribute, ask questions, suggestions, and just send via SMS or WhatsApp. Thank you. Please, you can answer the question now.
Well, I think beyond investment, a major evidence of how strong the naira had become has been the revival of profitability of loss-making companies in 2024. Most top-rated companies in Nigeria, recorded huge foreign exchange losses. You can start mentioning the NTA, Dangote, Abuja, Unilever, and all that, because of foreign exchange losses. But in the first quarter of 2025, we have seen a revival of sorts, in that segment. Most of these companies were not, and have not only, secured their foreign exchange position, some are actually regained, recorded foreign exchange gains, So when you have that, it means it's a different era. When we had a period when, of course, you could not predict the movement of the Nigerian naira rate. Two, the value was in a free fall. At the point in time, it was going to as much as 1,900 and something, And then you could not, even if it had stayed at that level, it's still predictable, but you now saw high volatility. It will fall to 1,005, and in another 2 weeks, it's up to 1,009. Now that's high volatility. And I think the CBN governor was right to note that the volatility measure of the naira had fallen from a high of 4% to 0.5%. That is huge. It means that if you are a planner, if you are an entrepreneur, even if you are a household, you can now plan, on what quantity of naira you will need, to be able to transact, to purchase this quantity, a particular quantity of dollars. So to a large extent, that's what drives the average investor. I want to be able to say, if I have 2 million naira, this is how much dollar it would buy for me. And of course, when I want to invest in a particular asset, either security, the beautiful right now has been treasury bills and bond, and of course, what he was talking about, real value, real returns, positive real returns, is to note that if you bring in a certain sum into an economy and you invest, and your returns is lower than the inflation rate, it's negative for you, because the real value of your investment is lower than what you are getting back, as a result of inflation. So when we have seen the rates, by CBN to attract foreign investors, the rate is higher and it is nearer inflation rate. Okay. So when it is nearer inflation rate, money will come in, and that is why, of course, foreign investors are coming into Nigeria. But what I also want to note, the character of the Nigerian economy is becoming quite interesting. At the point in time, the concentration was attract foreign investors as much as possible. But now exporters are coming into play. As at the last data that I came across, Nigerian exporters and non-banks, constituted more than 60% of inflow, foreign exchange inflow into the foreign exchange markets. Now that tells us we are becoming organic, because the more you move away from the foreign investors, who usually come in, what we describe as hot money, the better. Because foreign investors will bring their money, but at the slightest possibility of disruption, they are off, But when you have your exporters, domestic exporters, bringing back their money, one is a sign of confidence in the economy. Two, it's a sign really that the naira has become competitive, that they can assess the naira at the value they have projected, and of course, when they want to start the process of restocking again, the prices would be at that same range. So for me, I think it's a growth that we are seeing. It's not in absolute terms, but in relative terms, it's a growth, and all projections, point to the positivity of the economy.
Well, it's a growth, and all projection points to the possibility of the economy. Thank you, Dr. Akinshiju. Okay, let's bring in again Dr. Obo. I'd like to ask, do you think the CBN is likely to maintain its current monetary policy stance, or do you foresee any changes in the interest rate or liquidity management, anytime soon?
Thank you very much. I quite allude, before I answer that question, I quite allude to what Dr. Akinshiju said in terms of encouraging, other sources of capital inflow. And he mentioned export proceeds, which is very vital. But the other big elephant in the room, which is making waves now, is even remittance inflows from diaspora. That has taken a quantum leap. And it's an area that the bank is concentrating its efforts so much, with all the various reforms. They've just launched some bank accounts for diasporans, and it's making a lot of waves. Last week, there was a launch of BVN for diaspora Nigerians, that are abroad. You don't need to come to Nigeria. Online, you are able to open accounts for your investment and so on and so forth. I just felt I would add to that. Yeah. In terms of the outlook for MPC decisions, I will just simply answer by saying that data will speak. The entire committee is advised and driven largely by data. So as time comes up and the committee reviews developments, it will guide them. Definitely, if the data is in favor of moderation in the MPR, why not? Because the whole essence of what the bank or the committee is doing is to ensure that a conducive environment is created for growth. So the bank is not anti-growth. But just as he said, there must be some trade-off. When you are pursuing high inflation, so you must choose which one to prioritize first. And as I have said before, inflation is harmful all the way around, multiple fronts. So if you are able to tame that big elephant, inflation, if you're able to tame it, it helps, growth, inclusive growth particularly, to sprout up.
Yeah, actually, it's taming this big elephant that this one the viewers is asking this question, was making this comment. This is from Abdul Ganiyu Onutu Mohammed from Lagos. It says, "Good morning, discussants. We should be discussing the real way things which affect the common man. Prices of commodities are on high side to such an extent that one cannot approach a pharmacy to pick up common drugs. Building materials are out of reach. You can't repair your car, let alone get a second-hand tokumbo. Yet, you keep telling us that inflation is coming down, yet things are not affordable." I know that, you gave some explanation earlier. Probably he didn't join us at the beginning of the conversation. Probably you can just respond to that.
Yeah, thank you, Abdulganir, for your question. And I will let you know that the bank is also concerned about the high level of inflation. The point we are making is that in relative terms, the general prices of items is beginning to come down. There's one thing we should know. There's something in economics that we call that inflation is downward sticky. What that means is that when inflation is high, it takes a while. It doesn't fall sharply. It drops gradually. And the trajectory we have seen, just as he also alluded to it, is that inflation is declining gradually.
It's a process.
Yes, it's a process, and it's coming down. Now, what we call headline inflation is the totality. Inflation is defined as a rise in the general price of goods and commodities and services. It's general. So you have to add the price change across every item in the basket and put it together. So sometimes the price of some item might still remain high. But when the generality of the change, whether increase or decrease, point to a particular direction, we now see that the price of those items have dropped or reduced. Now, for imported items, what we'll watch out clearly for is the rate of increase or the rate of decrease. So that points to the stability now. So how stable are the prices? So by the time we are able to achieve that stability, we now begin to see how prices will begin to moderate, to come down. So what I want to say in conclusion here is that it takes a while. And as we begin to see price decline in some items, we expect that it will also have positive impact on other items. And those prices will come down with time.
All right. I have two comments of my own from our viewers. And Engineer Umoenyang from Jos says, good morning, Nigerians. In my opinion, the just concluded MPC meeting was fruitful as the CBN is living in reality, not abstract, by allowing all the parameters unchanged. The managers of the economy should think outside the box so as to reduce the inflation and also strive for single-digit interest rates. That's from Engineer Umoenyang from Jos. And the other, good morning, presenters and the guests. As a layman, my questions are, what effort and mechanism is the committee using to make our Naira to maintain its value over the foreign currencies, or at least the same value? And two, what is the committee doing to minimize buying and stuffing foreign currencies by some highly placed individuals and elites that is always causing scarcity? That's from Alhaji Garko from Karusite, Abuja.
Okay. The first comment, thank you very much for acknowledging the effort of the bank. The second commentator talks about the effort the bank is doing to ensure that our currency
to maintain
is
the
at
value.
Par. Yes, it's at par with other currencies. And I will still like to say that the long-term objective is to see how our currency is comparable to other currencies. But first, we have to ensure stability, which is the first thing that has to do. Now, this is a call to action. You know, if you want us to have our currency strengthened, it is in our balance of payment position. And what that means is that we should export more than the imports that we bring in. When you export more, then you are able to earn foreign currency more. You get the point? That now strengthens your own local currency against foreign currencies. So it has to do with what we produce, it has to do with what we sell, and that is what the federal government is doing. And we must commend the effort of the federal government in terms of diversification. Just as my colleague said, we have seen a huge positive change in terms of export proceeds. The non-oil sector, all through, we have been an oil-dependent economy. But a lot has changed. Kudos to the federal government. A lot has changed. The proceeds from the non-oil sector has grown. We have diversified largely the economy. There are, export earnings coming from the gas sector, which, before now has been somehow relegated, So the competitiveness of the Naira has made those exports to be more lucrative. And people are now coming in because it is cheaper for people to get goods out of the country because of the cheap Naira relative to other currencies. So it encourages export.
He also spoke of the buying and stuffing of foreign currency. What's the CBN doing about it?
Thank you very much. Now, the solution to that lies in the unification of the exchange rate. Because what has become an incentive for that is when you are able to get your Naira and you can go to the parallel market and make a lot of difference. But by the time that premium has narrowed significantly, keep your Naira, keep your dollar. You are wasting your time. Because now the exchange rate is so stable. Just as he mentioned, in the past, you will get your dollar at 1,500. Next week is going to 1,900. Look at that wide gap. So you make a gain for doing nothing. That arbitrage opportunity has been wiped out. The difference between the rate at the BDC and the rate at the official is very, very minimal. The exchange rate is very stable. So if you like, stock your bedroom, stock your tank with dollar. The Naira is not going to fall to a point that are going to make a wide difference in your margin. So that collapse and that stability has helped to remove that arbitrage opportunity. So whoever is stocking the dollar might go for a loss. Because what the central bank is doing is to ensure that the reforms that has been introduced to stabilize the exchange rate is sustained. And that is what is bringing the confidence of foreign investors into the economy. And I tell you, the governor and the management team is committed, is doggedly committed to ensure that that stability of exchange rate is maintained.
All right, Dr. Obal. Okay. We hope that stability will be maintained. We already have our Zoom guest who just joined us now. Let's just welcome Dr. Paul Alaje, Chief Economist and Partner CPM Professionals. Dr. Alaje, good morning and welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you so very much for having me. A beautiful morning to you and the guests in the studio.
All right. Dr. Alaje, I believe that you've been listening to the conversation so far. It's on the CBN NPC committee report that we are talking about. And we just want, what's your take on the latest report?
Thank you so very much. I think the Central Bank and indeed Monetary Policy Committee have maintained stance on combating inflation. When you look at the decision was to hold. The most significant one for me is the asymmetric corridor, which we actually use to trace if central bank have a decision on money supply. Clearly, money supply has gone beyond what the central bank wants to accommodate for a while, and that is why from the Mr. Yemi Cardoso's administration as the head of central bank, we have seen the interest rate jacked up from 14% now to 27.50%, CRR at 50% for DNBs, that's commercial banks, and 16% for merchant banks. We have also seen liquidity ratio increase sporadically to 30%. The asymmetric corridor is plus 500 and minus 100, which of course has implication on activity around the commercial bank. Here is it. The decision that was made yesterday was premised on a few things. Very carefully, in fact, I was on a national TV station when that program was going on. And first of all, I must say that at times like this, if Central Bank have done otherwise, I would have been. So again, because we have changed we have rebased our inflation. First of all, if you rebase your inflation in economics, then it becomes a bit of challenge for you to really determine the true state of inflation. Not number, and it's now making everybody compare apples and banana. In 2024, the base year we use, the reference year we use, and also the methodology we use for inflation is different from the one we are using now as 2025, as I think around February or March. The methodology changed. Now, because methodology changed, we cannot compare head to head. And for me, that's one reason why I think Monetary Policy Committee needs to take a stand to hold. Apart from other economic parameters, we saw what happened in America with pausing trade relation, implementation of new trade tariff. We have seen in recent time, America and China have taken some other similar decision. So to me, I think sitting on the fence, which people may think is nothing, but to us, that decision is something that is very significant because there are three possible decisions. That decision to hold is very significant because of so many uncertainties. If we also check what IMF is saying about Nigeria, where cut Nigeria expected growth rate to 3% for 2025, for 2026, even further cut it to 2.7%. And I particularly noted that the central bank governor also mentioned it in his report that Nigeria will now need to watch what is happening both at external and domestic environment and see how we can respond to possible any form of shock that may come to our economy, which I think is very significant and very important that we do at this time. So when I looked at the number, clearly what I saw was that we have decided to hold because of some uncertainty in the domestic arena. In fact, in econometrics, when you start seeing numbers like this coming up, because we just adjusted our number, most of the time we post such number as outlier because we cannot say inflation reduced. Because if you listen to the report yesterday, the communique yesterday when the central bank governor read it, he didn't say inflation reduced from 34% to 24%. Instead, we are seeing signs of reduction because when inflation was adjusted from 34 to 24, what we saw was that the following month it went to 23, it went back up to 24, it's back in 23. So it is difficult for us to actually tell what is to be done. So that's what I would say as introduction regarding the decision that was taken yesterday. But whether the rate we are now is high or not, because if you check, most countries in the world have started cutting rates. I've seen Asian countries cutting rates. Donald Trump is saying that the Fed, that's the central bank in America, should also cut rates. How does this affect us? For us, as rightly mentioned by your guest in the studio, because of confidence that we have started building again and our currency is building, foreign investors have started coming. Most of these investors are portfolio investors. If we suddenly or abruptly cut rates, what will happen is that some of those investors will go, and you know that there are people investing around the world. They have options. It mustn't be in Nigeria. Even if we don't cut rates, if America increase rates, it's also a risk to us. And this is why I think that, yes, maybe when time comes, we can now look at the implication on the real sector in Nigeria and on Nigerian population as a people.
All right, Dr. Alaje, thank you very much. But I'd like to stay with you for a moment. And I'm asking, what, in your opinion, are the most pressing economic challenges facing Nigeria today, and how you think they can be addressed through policy interventions and reforms?
There are a number of challenges facing Nigeria. One of them will be high inflation, which is what Monetary Policy Committee is trying to correct by putting high interest rates. High interest rate 27.5%. When you look at the asymmetrical drop of 500 for bank to borrow from central bank, that is already 28%. Bank is not a charity organization. To give to Nigerians, they'll be looking at 30%. So the question is, what business are you going to do at the cost of borrowing at about 32%? That is really worrisome. So it's a big challenge for businesses. Now, when businesses are not able to borrow, then we say in economics that we have crowd out investment, 1, 2, we have also crowd out employment. These are realities that we need to face with, that the country seems to face with because of economic challenges we are trying to correct. Apart from that, we also see that is monetary authority able to correct the anomaly of high inflation or stubborn inflation alone? The answer is no. Why? Because having studied quite a number of economies in the last 80 years, and for most African countries in the last 50 years, I can give you an example of Argentina. I can give you an example of Germany. I can give you an example of South Korea. If all these countries have attempted different methods to solving inflationary pressure, especially stubborn inflation, one point or the other, including America, what seems to be ubiquitous to all of these countries that when you are solving inflationary problem pressure that is persistent. Mark you, Nigerian inflation got to double digit as again the target of central bank of single digit inflation between 6 to 9% from 2015 up to date. In double digit inflation has remained with us. But what did South Korea, what did they do? What did Japan, what did they do? What did Germany, what did this country, what did they do for them to conquer stubborn inflation to have relatively stable economy? One, monetary authority, as represented by central bank in Nigeria, fiscal authority, and that talks about several parts of the economy, and trade authority must align. Policy alignment, policy coordination is very important. What do I mean by this exactly? We must direct our energy in having supply, output, production, manufacturing. In fact, the central bank governor mentioned something yesterday regarding energy costs. Energy cost is one of the key drivers that you see driving inflation to be very high. On top of that, we have heard the Minister of Power said that the remaining subsidy on different band B and so would also be removed. I can only but laugh because this calls for a huge concern. If truly an agency of government called Central Bank of Nigeria is trying to combat inflation, another agency of government, in this case, the Ministry of Power, is not even looking at the overall implication on the economy. And then when we say that policies are not converging, this is exactly what we mean by that conversation. So we need to focus on output, we need to focus on exports, we need to focus on production. So central bank will do what we do. I don't expect central bank to be generating power or to be exporting, because instrument for you to export or to import is what they will provide, which is exchange rate. So if all components of government are doing what they are supposed to do, then we can see economic prosperity. We can see reduction in poverty. What bank just said, 3 out of 4 people that live in rural area in Nigeria are living below poverty line of $2.15. We can also see the same reduction even in urban center where you have over 40%. That is 2 out of 5. Living below poverty line of $2.15. So all agencies of government must do what they ought to do part time, and we can converge and build prosperity for our nation.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Paul Alaje, for your perspective there. We will just go on break. Then when we come back, our conversation on CBN and MPC reports will continue. Stay with us.
The Nigerian national flag represents our country's history, culture, and identity. It was designed in 1959. The colors are Emerald Green 2.0, which represents agriculture, and Immaculate White represents unity and peace. Know how to handle our flag. Illuminate the environment or don't fly the flag overnight. Do not fly a dirty or tattered flag. Take such flag to the nearest National Orientation Agency office for proper disposal and replacement. The national flag can only be flown at half-mast on the directive of the federal government. The national flag must be flown at the same or higher height when displayed alongside other flags. Don't burn or allow the national flag to fall on the ground. Do not print, decorate, modify, or insert the coat of arms on the flag. Our national heroes are not buried with the flag. They are honored by presenting it to their next of kin during interment. Respect our national flag. Be a real Nigerian.
This message was brought to you by the National Orientation Agency, NOA.
The business environment, to be honest with you, has been extremely hard on most Nigerian women's businesses, and of course harsh for a number of reasons. There is no way you would increase or move subsidy and increase the price of fuel that it doesn't have the counter effect. It has been very challenging for so many women. I know that a lot of them have cried in one way or the other to us to find ways of intervening, but that is not to say that it is all doom and gloom. We will still have a few percentage of women that are thriving in this economy, but we hope that we'll be able to get a larger percentage. One of the things I've seen with even our local purchases now is that people are buying more made in Nigerian options of food, of clothing, and so on and so forth than the imported. So that again is helping some of our industries thrive. Surprisingly, the telecommunications is still doing well, and the reason is very simple. A lot of people are going for online options of skills in terms of training, communications, even remote working. And so you will see that people that provide services around those areas also thrive. But I think at the end of the day, it's about partnerships, collaboration, and influencing power from especially the private sector and even the public sector. But we really need the public sector to drive a number of things, especially policies, because the public sector has the national spread above even whatever we can do in our own small way. What has happened over the years is that even the government, for example, is being pulled from different angles by all these stakeholders. We need to harness ourselves to have strategic focus areas, and we should all be moving in the same direction, not using a competitive approach, but a collaborative approach. Secondly, in collaboration, we need to move with large clusters of decision makers. Instead of, the process of reaching out to individuals is painstakingly long and it takes time. And so we need to engage these stakeholders on a larger platform. I think it's very important to identify where you can get help in your own little way. And one of the things I've realized is that when you operate in silo, it is difficult for you to lift yourself out of the situation. Identify ways you can do what you are doing in a simpler way. And if what you are doing is no more profitable, why not find out what can you do in the meantime that will help you? You need to think outside the box and then connect. What you can do is also identify people and become a cluster to provide a service that ordinarily you cannot do alone.
Thanks for staying with us. You're still on to Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. The conversation is still on the CBN Monetary Policy Committee report, and we have our guest in the studio. Dr. Akinshiju, and before we went on break, Dr. Paul Alaje was talking about, some governments, working at cross purposes, and I know that you were itching to respond to some of his comments. Can we just have your response now?
Yeah, well, in a nutshell, I don't subscribe to his position that inflation rates are not coming. It's not coming down. I think relatively there's a movement. Yes, we are not comparing the 34.80 inflation rate in December to the 23.71 in April. But what is obvious is that there's a new template, inflation measurement template that has been adopted by the Bureau of Statistics. So to a large extent, even by our own measure, our own survey, we have seen price movement, decline in price movement. It is relative, it is not absolute. We cannot compare to 2022, for instance, or to 2021, but relative to this period last year, relative to April, when the inflation rate we're talking about is April 2025, relative to April 2024, there had been a movement, there had been a decline, in the prices of some products, including the all powerful PMS. The price of PMS was quite high in 2024. Now, because of the crude for naira policy of government, the major supplier of PMS in Nigeria, the Dangote refineries, had reduced prices, and to a large extent, even including diesel that is used by companies, by manufacturers and other producers, the price had also fallen. In Lagos, you could get a liter of petrol at 830 naira, 850 some places. In Abuja, average 930, 950.
910 now.
910 now. It was 1,000 at a point in time. So that is movement. So we are not saying that it has drastically reduced. No. The truth of the matter is that the historical economic behavior has caught up with us. That's the truth. When we're supposed to run an efficient, perhaps market-driven economy, we're running a dependency economy, and now we are trying to redress those errors of the past. So for me, the reality is that we have a new environment, and we are trying to nurture this environment. So to a large extent, I believe that the Nigerian inflation rate will not fall to the extent, to the predictions of IMF, that it will fall to 26.5% in 2025 and perhaps to 37% in 2026. I issued a statement. My organization issued a statement, to challenge that we are not in such a terrible state that we will have that kind of scenario, So I believe that this range will likely, what we are experiencing now, will likely align with the World Bank prediction of 21, 22%, and in 2026, 15%. So we are actually going to see a reduction. That is one. Then two. He expressed concern over the power industry, the power ministry, announcement of a possible increase in tariff. The truth of the matter is, tariffs are being how do I want to put it? Tariffs are being subsidized in Nigeria. There's what you call market-reflected tariff rates. That is the actual we are supposed to pay. But the question had been, as we discussed here off camera, has been that the power supply, had been deficient. And my own position is we are also paying for our error of the past. What had been the level of investment in the power industry over time, rather than invest in power, in equipment, in generation, in transmission, in distribution, we were actually subsidizing over the years. So the money government, when power was within the purview of government, the money that it was supposed to invest in the power industry was actually being used for supplies to distribute to households. And therefore, we have found deficiency, on the capacity and capabilities of those of the power sector. And the truth of the matter is, when the reality caught up with us that we needed to privatize, we privatized on a very wrong model. The beneficiaries of the privatized entities did not bring any form of investment into the play. The government actually borrowed money, lent them money, so much that at a point in time we're talking of close to 3 trillion naira, that the government had used in supporting the industry, as it were. Now that is patently wrong, and as it were, I think there's a need to redress it. If the minister had said we needed $10 billion every year for the next 20 years, to stabilize power supply, then it should be a concern for every Nigerian. everybody that talks economy, that talks about standard of living and all that, should be worried that we need 10 billion. How much is the total value of our budget in the first instance? And now we're talking about 10 billion. And if we are going to continue to privatize, because that is the other option, to get the private sector fully involved, in this power generation value chain. Unless we get that right, I'm sorry, I mean, the reality is that we'll continue with this deficient system.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Akishiju. We have some responses from our viewers. This one says, it said Dr. Nia Akishiju should be considered as a spokes for CBN.
Unfortunately, I'm far from CBN.
But he's commending you, actually. He said you are highly cerebral. He's highly cerebral. My question is, how is MPC translating to the market women or men in the hinterland, particularly food inflation, rent, and pharmaceutical? CBN must have agent for market surveillance and not sitting in office collating data. Dr. Obo, you answer that. Good morning. We all know that high inflation does not fall sharply, but if CBN can empower the farmers that produce food and crops that can be exported to balance the import, then we can expect a decline in inflation. This one, okay, before I leave Victor to read his own, this one says, I am Ademola. I want to commend CBN. I am a printer and a publisher. The paper we used to buy at 85 kobo is now 68 kobo, which means that it has dropped. We need more of this. Thank you.
Okay.
You would like to respond to
yes,
before Victor.
Thank you very much. And the issue about comparing inflation in 2024 and now, it should be taken cautiously. And to be able to bring the effort of the bank in terming inflation into context, we need to look at a scenario where nothing is done, something we call counterfactual analysis. If these tightening measures were not put in place, where would our inflation have been by now?
Okay.
Yes, that brings into limelight the appreciation of the effort that the bank has put in place. I just want to mention that. The issue of monetary policy, fiscal policy coordination is key. And I will assure you that at this point in time, there are a lot of interactions between the two authorities. I just felt I should just mention that. The commentators' comment around data, I would like to say that the CBN does not collect official data. We are only consumers of data. It should be interesting for the public to know that data we use comes from the National Bureau of Statistics. Yes. So we can't be a judge in our own case. They collect the data, compute the data, tell us inflation statistics, break it down for us. All we do, we analyze in the context of recent developments. And I commend the second commentator who talks about a decline.
A drop in the paper.
Yes,
like
in the price of paper.
Yes. To 60,
so this is what we are talking about. That for some items, prices might drop. For other items, it might not drop immediately, But what inflation means is the change in the general price of items. Okay. We have a basket with so many items there. Some might enjoy decline at one time, others might enjoy marginal increase. But the average of all that has happened give rise to those inflation figures.
All right. Let me run through the messages that I have here, quite a number. Now, good morning, NTA and the presenters, all the resource persons. Please, I know the inflation rates on food stuff are coming down. I'm so worried about the peasant farmers who will sell their grains in a cheaper rate and go to buy farming inputs like seedling, fertilizer in a very expensive, at a very expensive rate. Please, Nigerian government wants people to farm. The prices of these inputs should be checked. That's according to Samuel Luka from Plateau State. And does the CBN believe that our Naira is well overvalued or undervalued? Alhaji Yusuf Olani. And all this economics grammar does not conform with the market reality. We are finding it difficult to buy things that you are projecting to be on decline in prices. Let's face reality and reduce the suffering of the common Nigerian vis-a-vis stabilizing the Naira. That's from Commodore Umar Abdul Razak, Theoden Fulani from Toro LG. Almost all things we use are imported. Let your guests name the new local factories that are exporting aside the oil sector. We need to encourage local manufacturing. Farmers can't even go to their farms because of insecurity. Okay, no name. Good morning to the guests in the studio. Can the guests from CBN tell Nigerians what the CBN is doing to enforce Naira as the only legal tender in Nigeria and stop the practice of charging dollar by some individuals and companies for goods and services sold in Nigeria? Apart from Nigeria, there is no other country in Africa where dollar is spent freely and accepted as legal tender. Not until this madness is stopped can we start to see any appreciable appreciation in the value of the Naira. Yemi from Jabi, Abuja. And then with high rates of inflation, forex insecurity, etc., and effects of Trump's tariff wars, what is the CBN MPC doing to tame high domestic inflationary pressures in the country without advising the FG to restore fuel subsidies that could be said to be a catch-all variable in modeling the Nigerian economy since we discovered oil? Okay? And two more.
Thank you very much. And I must commend the active participation of the audience. And that shows a lot of improvement in the concerns they have about their economy. And this kind of engagement, feedback is important. I must take note. There are copious number of things that we need to take back and see how we can continue to work, you know. Maybe I will take a few of those that I'm able to remember. The issue of the price of food, which is coming down, and one of the commentators is concerned about what that means for the ordinary farmer. Low price of food is good even for the farmer. We are not saying that it's only the price of food that is coming down. If the farmer is selling his foodstuff at a lower price, but is sure that he's going to pay for drug at that same lower price, it's better for him than to sell his food item at a higher price, but he's going to buy paracetamol at a much higher price. So that is the issue we are talking about. So it's a win-win when we have low and stable price for everybody. Somebody asks if there are new factories that are open, new items that are being exported. And I must say that a lot of things are happening. For instance, we must be reminded that before now, almost 100% of our refined petroleum is imported. Today, the story is different. The trajectory has changed with Dangote refinery. That is a big, big win for us as Nigerians. So Dangote is not only providing refined oil to Nigerians, it's also exporting. We also know that a new dimension has even been added in terms of urea that is enjoying substantial export out of the country. I can go on and on and on and on. And that is helping to reduce exchange rate pressure, because those sources of FX or foreign exchange from those other sources are meeting the demand of Nigerians in the local effect, in the local market. So that pressure is reducing. All these are what are contributing to the stability in the exchange rate.
Okay, Dr. Obo. We have more responses, which I would like Dr. Paul Alaje to respond to. Dr. Alaje, if you can just listen to this so that you can respond. He said, yes, prices are going down, but the fact remains that they won't be at the level Tinubu met them because of the removal of fuel subsidy and devaluation of the naira. The low purchasing power, especially among civil servants, make the pains seem eternal. That was from Umar Mohammed from Buhari FCT. And this one says, the major challenge in Nigeria is banks giving loan to political farmers, leaving the real farmers that produce for export. And this one says, good morning, presenter. My name is Ismail from Buhari, Abuja. The major problem facing the naira hoarding of dollars by elites and some individuals. CBN should stop giving BDCs dollars, let them source their dollars themselves. Dr. Alaje, you want to respond to some of this?
Yeah, thank you so very much, sir. Thank you once again for those questions, to the commentators that have asked those questions. So talking about price and going back to the old prices, I'm afraid you might not see that prices go back to what they used to be before now. A number of things have been adjusted in the economy. So yes, prices may go down, but the truth is that the person that asks the question, if he's working, if he works with government, for instance, such person was on 30,000 minimum wage. Now government has extended to 70,000 minimum wage. In any case, in economics, we're not particular about the absolute amount that you talk about, maybe 100,000, 30,000, or 70,000. What we talk about in economics is what you need, what you can do with what you earn. And it is to this extent, I want to advise people that are listening to us. Maybe you want to call it personal finance class or personal coaching or some sort. Economy has changed. The truth is that it has changed more for us in Africa, not just Nigeria, in Africa. And in the rest of the world, especially countries that we have studied in recent time. Why? One, because of tariff war that started in 2019 under President Trump. Two, because of COVID-19 that started in 2023, because of Ukraine-Russia war that we are hoping will subside. 4, because of crisis in the Middle East in 2024. 5, because of new tariff law that was introduced again by President Trump in 2025. All of these have caused a lot of negative externalities, external shocks for different economies. What you should do is to expand your earning capacity. Please, expand your earning capacity. If you are working and what you work on is between 9 to 5, please find a way to find extra income so that you can bear with the current pressure. 2, the question another person asked about loan to farmers. I want to believe that government is working on how to empower the specific agencies of government to give loans to farmers. And I've also advised that some of the development finance that central bank has stopped, we may need to have a review, maybe not directly from central bank to farmers, maybe the partnership between Central Bank of Agriculture, so that we can support farmers. It's very important. My concern here is that even though we say we want to support farmers, and farmers are just having output, it's also important for us to link what farmers are doing to what manufacturers, what food processors are doing within the value chain, so that processors can afford to buy directly from farmers, and that can get to the market. So we need to provide those linkages. Selling to BDC, well, I'm afraid I will not say that central bank should abruptly stop selling to BDC, because let me tell you something. Before January 2024, I think around January 2024, around 38th January 2024, exchange rate went to 1,900. Nobody was happy with that. And if you know, I was one of the persons that championed the fact that central bank cannot absolutely float our currency. And I must say kudos to Mr. Yemi Cardoso's central bank leadership, that they listened. If central bank had not intervened at all, honestly, you would have been talking of 3,200. So he's right. When the head of monetary policy said that if they had not made policy at all, things might have been worse. If they have left it just flotation without coming to the market once in a while to provide succor I tell you, things would have been worse. In fact, our econometrics model we ran in our organization reviewed that the best case scenario would have been 1,008. The worst case scenario would have been 3,006. But thankfully, not all the time, Central Bank comes to the market to provide some level of succor so that we can manage the exchanges around 1,005, 1,006, which I think for now it's okay. The end goal, the long-run target, is to make.
Dr. Paul Alaje, I'm afraid I'll have to let you go at this point because we've completely run out of time. We're actually overrunning at the moment, but we'd like to thank you very, very much for your perspectives on the conversation today. That's Dr. Paul Alaje, Chief Economist and Partner, SPM Professionals. We thank you very much for finding time to join us.
Thank you so much, Fab.
All right, let me also thank Dr. Victor Obo, Director, Monetary Policy Department at the CBN. We thank you very much for your time on the program.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And let's not forget our own Dr. Niya Kinshiju, Financial and Investment Analyst and Chairman, Independent Media and Policy Initiative. Always a pleasure hosting you on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thanks so much. It's a privilege.
And that's Good Morning Nigeria.
Don't forget to thank our viewers for their comments and their SMS. Please keep them coming. Thank you so much for sending your comments. I am Ademola Adeoye.
And I'm Victor Azu. We'll see you again tomorrow.